In the Fenian cycle of Irish mythology, the story of the Salmon of Knowledge tells how Fionn became the greatest man of all Ireland. According to Irish mythology, the first people in Ireland were Bith, the son of Noah, his daughter Cesar with her husband Fintan MacBochra, and Lodra, who had piloted their vessel to the island. They also had 50 virgins. As time passed, the pilot Lodra left to find his own path, and Bith died, leaving Fintan with Cesar and the 50 women. This was all too much for Fintan, so he left the women and moved away on his own. Grief at the loss of her men caused Cesar to fall into a deep melancholy, and she died. Not long after the death of Cesar, a great flood, the deluge, came about. It wiped the world clean, with only Noah and his family safe in their ark. However, God is merciful, and he felt a feeling of sorrow for Fintan. Instead of condemning him to die in the raging waters, he allowed Fintan to become a salmon, and in his form, he survived the terrible event. After the waters receded, Fintan the salmon swam up the Boyne River from the sea. He eventually found a deep, quiet pool in which he could regain his strength. Now around this pool, God had allowed 9 hazel trees to grow, and on each tree he allowed 9 nuts to grow. These nuts were filled with all the knowledge of the world. As the seasons passed and autumn approached, the nuts of wisdom matured and fell, one after the other, into the pool where Fintan was swimming. He devoured each nut as it touched the water, and so all the wisdoms passed on to him. From this he was known as An Bradán Fasa, or Bradán an Eloish, which means the Salmon of Knowledge. Centuries passed and people returned to the land. They learned about the Salmon of Knowledge, but no one had ever caught it or gained its wisdom. Then the time came, and a druid poet came into the Boyne Valley and settled. His name was Finnegas, and it was his dream that he would be able to catch Fintan and consume him to gain all the knowledge of the world. Now in Ireland at the same time was a band of hero warriors known as the Fianna. One of these heroes, Cumhal, fell in love with Myrna of the White Neck. Myrna was the daughter of Taig MacNudat, a druid. Taig refused to allow marriage, and in desperation, Cumhal, leader of the Fianna, abducted Myrna, and they fled from her father. Myrna became pregnant and gave birth to a boy whom she called Demna. Taig was incensed, almost to madness, and had Cumhal killed in battle by Gall MacMorna, but the baby, however, was secreted away from him. The child Demna grew into a brave, fine young man, very fair in countenance. So fair was he that his given name Demna was replaced by the name Fionn, and he was henceforth known as Fionn MacCool. He was always in danger from his vengeful grandfather Taig, and the leader of the Fianna. It was decided that Fionn should be placed into the care of Druidess Bocnal and her husband Fiachal MacCon. He would then become a student under Finnegas, a poet, and so he was sent to the Druid settlement along the River Boyne. Finnegas taught the Druidic arts to Fionn, but he never lost his hope that one day he would catch the Salmon of Knowledge. Every day he would cast his line into the River Boyne in the hope of hooking the fish, and suddenly one day he hooked a giant of a salmon. He knew immediately that it was the transformed Fintan. He called out in joy and pulled the fish onto the river bank. Calling Fionn, he demanded that the lad set about building a fire and cooking the fish. He warned the young man not to eat any of the fish, and the boy gave his promise. Finnegas was overjoyed. He would not only be the wisest druid in Ireland, but the wisest man in all of the world. And so, exhausted by his great deed, he took to his bed. Fionn placed the salmon on a spit over the fire and started to cook it. When it was nearly finished, he called for Finnegas to come for his meal. However, some burning fat from the fish splashed onto Fionn's thumb, burning him. The youngster merely stuck his thumb into his mouth, as one does with such a burn. Soon Finnegas arrived with his eating salver, but immediately recognised that there was something different about his young pupil. He demanded to know whether Fionn had eaten any of the fish. The boy denied this, but related to Finnegas about the burn he had received. Finnegas realised then that it was not his destiny to receive the greatest wisdom from the salmon, but it was the destiny of Fionn McCool. After that night, Fionn McCool was to become the greatest of all men in Ireland. Hello lads and lassies, I just wanted to say thanks a million for watching my videos. And if you could do me a big favour mate, and hit that subscribe button down there in the bottom right hand side. That would be like totally awesome, dude. Because my channel has like loads of different accents and like voices on it, man. It ain't exactly rocket science now, is it? All you have to do is hit the little red button that says subscribe. So come on down. Hell, I got more accents than the state of Texas has rifles. Hey you. Yeah, I'm talking to you. If you're looking for any voiceovers or voice acting in over 40 different accents, all you gotta do is go to Fiverr.com and find me on the JP Wright voice. Otherwise, you're gonna be with the Gambino crew and sleeping with the fishes. Aye, and don't ye forget, hit that resubscribe button down there on the bottom right hand side, hey.